Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode. I get to sit down with Steve Speck from Exo Mountain Gear, the Hunt Backcountry podcast, and great guy in the industry. Been pretty successful in a few different avenues when it comes to the hunting industry. But I get to talk to him this episode about hunting caribou in Alaska. And I'll tell you, caribou has been on my list for quite a few years now, and I'm just really itching at pulling the trigger as soon as I get a little bit more money saved up. And I just want to get some cost associations with hunting caribou in Alaska. I want to go towards, Brooks Range, somewhere around there, which Steve has experience going over there, and what to bring, what to expect, realistic expectations. And Steve does a really good job of keeping somebody grounded in what to expect and the costs and maybe some of the hidden things that people don't think of when bringing their meat back. And really appreciate his insight on this, and I would absolutely love to have him back on the show again, and I plan on doing that. But this episode is caribou hunting in Alaska, and I really hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you in the end. Bye. Well, let's basically start from the beginning. So I know from my personal experience, what I've learned so far is, what kind of costs are associated with it, and I've heard that I could do it for $5,000 or less, a caribou hunt. I don't know what your perspective is on that, since you've been there and done that. I've been trying to set a budget of $5,000 and getting it done and getting the meat back and everything for that or less. What's your experience on that?
1,000% you should be able to do it for under $5,000. I think the rates went up a little bit, and to be honest with you, I can't remember. We're doing the caribou hunt again this September, but I think it was $2,750 is what we paid for basically a drop camp hunt. So that's, fly out of the, some tiny little airport, and they drop you off in the field, and then they come pick you and your meat up, 5 to 7 days later, depending on the hunt that you're doing. So I was like $2,750 if you're good about your flight. I think from Boise up there is really pretty easy. Alaska Airlines is a great choice. Just you go into Anchorage, and then from Anchorage we flew into Kotzebue, and that's your flight. So I think you're $700, $600 to $800 probably for that. Tags, I can't. I'm terrible here. Caribou tag. The rates went up a lot. And last time, I haven't bought it yet for this hunt, so I think we paid like $300, but I think they doubled to $600, $700, something like that.
Right, and I heard you can only kill one now, versus when some places you could kill two.
I think that depends on where you're at in the state. Again, I'm terrible here, and that I'm not an expert. It's just the unit that we've hunted is one caribou.
Okay.
They definitely changed that quite a few years ago. I know there's a lot of debate on how the caribou herds are going, but I think a lot of it's very political, and they're kind of a little bit of a battle there between the native population and people kind of complaining about numbers being low and what is the cause of that. I know that I think the resident, non-resident hunters, it was a very small percentage, maybe 5 or 10% of the total caribou killed, and the rest were by the natives.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, well, cut back the non-resident hunter tag in half, you're still really not making a big difference. So,
I've been looking at like going Brooks Range. I'm not really sure, but Brooks Range is kind of where I've narrowed my area down for, just because I've heard that come up a lot. A lot of guys have had good experiences going to that area. What was the area that you guys went to, and have you any information on that?
Basically the south west side of the Brooks Range. So
okay.
It was absolutely gorgeous. We were camped right at the foothills of the Brooks. So and then the way that if you're a cameraman or love taking photos, the angle of the sun just never gets very high all day long. So even in the middle of the day, you can take absolutely beautiful photos.
That's awesome.
The first time we went the end of August, and it was early. It was like the hunting could have been good, just like elk hunting in September 1st could be really good, but odds are September 25th is going to be a lot better as far as bugling action. I think that
Mm-hmm.
kind of the same rule applies up there as far as the migrate. The later in September you can go, the better. But which is tough because we went in August last time, so we could get back into Idaho for September and not miss out on a bunch. And this time we're going right in the middle of September because it's like, if you're gonna spend the time, energy, and money to get up there, you might as well go when it's really good.
Well, right. When's the caribou rut?
I think I don't know. I don't know that answer. I think it's kind of late, but you're not worried about. I mean, this is purely just hunting them, migrating. I don't know if necessarily if they're rutting. The bulls are kind of all intermixed with the cows, and they're. I don't know when the rut is. I don't know if it's for some reason. The second you asked that, I wanted to say it was late, but I could be completely wrong.
Well, no worries. No, it's like you said, you guys are hunting is that the 40-mile herd or is that a different area? Like I've always heard of the 40-mile herd, and it's like, man, that'd be so cool just to even see that. But
I don't think it's the 40-mile herd.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not, but man,
I know I'm hitting your weak areas right here. Well, let's get into how your hunt went, man. And I know I'm going to have so many questions along the way. Like my main concerns, and these are probably just, ankle-sized hurdles that I'm getting hung up on here, but like getting the meat back and, hidden costs, because I went to Africa, dude, and it was like, I didn't know it was going to cost me that. I didn't know I had to pay a broker to get my animals back. I didn't know I was going to get dinged storage fees at the airport. Like all these extra costs, so it's like, let's get into your trip, man. I'm really interested in hearing how it went, and I know it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess put it in perspective, we went on a moose hunt. I want to say 2014, 15, and it was kind of like. It was the biggest about letdown that you could ever have, as far as like you have all this build up, first trip to Alaska, gonna go hunt moose. You have all this built up in your head, and it was like everything that could go wrong went wrong on that hunt. The location, the hunting was slow, just bad weather, delays getting in and out of the field, and we were also totally green and. There's a lot of that's just Alaska. Like, we're so used to, and I think so extremely spoiled here, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, wherever. If you're a resident, you just go hunting and who cares if it kind of snows, big deal. You either tough it out or you just stay home for an extra day, wait for the storm to pass and go. It's like, but when you make all that energy to travel up there, you got your, on that moose hunt was like, I think it was 14-day hunt. You miss out on 4, 5, 6 days because of bad weather. That makes you kind of sour. And obviously, nobody controls that. But we did not ask. We were similar to what you're talking about with Africa. We didn't ask about all these fees and hidden things that you just kind of get up there and holy crap, man! I got to pay $200 to get the moose meat flown to Anchorage, and then the butcher there wants to charge how much to butcher it, and then. Holy crap, it's $600 to fly the meat home from Anchorage on an Alaska Airlines flight. I mean, I think those numbers are pretty close to it was just like, whoa, that was, it's still cheaper than buying beef at the store, but dang, it kind of got expensive. So yeah, I think it really all starts with finding a really good, essentially guide service, and whether it's an outfit or guide service. Everything we've done is essentially you're hiring a pilot and they help you with the logistics and drop you off in a place, right? Like you don't choose the place. They pretty much, you can kind of tell them what you're looking for, and hopefully you can kind of develop a good relationship with them. But they know where they're going to drop you off, and they go drop you off. But get a good relationship with one, and hopefully you pick one that cares. The first time we went on the moose hunt was a pretty big outfit. And, I don't know if we just had like bad luck, bad timing, but it was just more of like a customer service issue with communication, what to expect, we just kind of it was definitely just, you felt, you just weren't treated very well. The second time we went was essentially a husband and wife operation. Their daughter's the one that picked you up from the airport, shuttled you around, brought you to the hotel, picked you up. the lady basically like had you got to, so for getting meat home on this one, you'll want fish boxes, and whoever you go with, just ask them if they basically have a table that you can set up and butcher your meat, and you're just going to butcher that sucker up best you can, as fast as you can, throw it in a fish box. Hopefully there's access to a freezer so you can get it frozen, and then the next day you're going to get on the flight. You're going to pay, your oversized baggage fee of like $75. And you're going to bring 2 boxes home, probably 100 pounds of meats for $150, and it's done, right? And you can either finish the butchering yourself or take it to your local guy. That is hands down the best way to do it. Caribou aren't very big. That was something that, there was surprising to both Lenny and I when we went on the hunt. When we killed them and you kind of got up on them, it was like much more a small cow elk, big mule deer than like a big cow elk, small bull. That's kind of what I was thinking. So not 100 pounds of meat is probably what you're going to get off of them. And yeah, that's definitely the way to go. You just want to butcher that sucker yourself. I think we just essentially deboned it like we would out in the field if we were, 5 miles back in there and didn't want to pack out the bones. Threw them in a box and froze them, and got them home. So
here you got, just real quick, because some areas you're supposed to aren't you supposed to like take the rib cage and stuff?
Yeah, I do think that's different rules for different areas of the state.
Okay.
So better check the regs and find out what that is. On our moose hunt, you had to take the ribs, I believe. It's been a few years ago, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. And then on the caribou hunt, it was just quarters, neck meat, back straps, tenderloins. I think that was it. Yeah, I don't think you had to do the ribs.
And what about the hide? Getting the hide back, you just toss that into a fish crate too, or did you have it mounted up there?
So both of us shot smaller bulls. We just decided to take, we sawed the antlers off, put those in a big box. I imagine I would do the exact same thing. Yeah, if you could get the hide off, do your best to get all the fat and meat off of it, get it frozen, and then, yeah, you're just going to fly that home with you.
Interesting. I've always wondered how that works, how getting a huge, caribou rack home would work.
Yeah, if caribou rack and you want to do a mount on it, that you might. I'm not an expert on that one yet. Haven't been fortunate to kill a big one where it was an issue. So, I know it gets really spendy and really time consuming though. The second you fly away and leave those antlers and that cape there, I think you better have a lot of patience and be willing to, unless you got someone who's really taking care of it all for you, it's probably going to cost you some money to get that sucker home.
Interesting.
I know Jason on our moose hunt, one of the guys that was with us, he killed a really big bull, kind of unique one. It was all clubbed out on one side. And I know they flew everything. They put it on a crate, flew it to Anchorage, and then the taxidermy place there. I mean, they just kind of gorged them. It was a $700-800 if I remember right, just to do a European mount on the thing.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty high. It's somewhere in that ballpark. Again, it's been a few years back, but I remember thinking when on this caribou hunt going into it 2 years ago was like, okay, let's just whatever it is, no matter how tired you are or how, you're going to be lacking some time getting out of the field and you may have to, get on your flight to come back to the lower 48, 5 a.m. the next morning. You better stay up all night and just take care of that stuff and get it on the plane with you and get it home. So
to save you guys a bunch of money. I mean,
yeah.
my hiccup with it, and maybe it's just because I'm not going to say I'm cheap, but I feel like when I pay money to go on a hunt, like when I went to Africa, or if I paid, $10,000 to go on a stag hunt or whatever, the pressure and if the weather was screwing me the whole time, I don't know if I could handle it. I mean,
yeah,
you're the mercy of Mother Nature. You could pay, I don't know what a moose hunt costs, but what does a moose hunt kind of go for, like a 14-day flow hunt?
Similar. I think like I said, you could all in on a caribou. You're going to be, on the cheapest you could possibly do is maybe $4,000, and then $5,000 if you splurged a little bit. I think a moose you're probably $8,000, $8 to $9, something like that.
Yeah. See, if I spent $8,000, I'd be like, I'm going to go there. I'm going to kill something that's going to be pretty good size. And if I don't, I'm not coming back.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, that was our first trip up there, in both trips I've killed a moose and a caribou with a rifle. Like I'm a 99% a bow hunter, but we packed that rifle because like if it comes down to it, I'm coming home empty handed.
I'm glad you said that, because I wish maybe I should go to an area where you can kill two, because I feel like if I could just drop one with a gun, I would have no pressure, and then I could have fun. Not that rifle hunting isn't fun, but getting that monkey off your back and then just enjoying the trip, knowing, hey, I've already got my caribou. I'm already coming home with meat. Now I can go out and struggle and fail, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, we did. I completely agree. We did. I don't think these podcasts have been released yet, but on our Hunt Backcountry one, we did a 2-part series with a guy named Billy Moles, and it's actually, you could probably learn a lot more about caribou hunting from him than you can listen to me, because I'm sitting there like we're asking him all these questions. You're asking me. He's been through the route and knows it a lot better. But he had a good input on that, because he said he sees a lot of people do that very thing, right? Like go up there with a bow and a gun, and you're like kind of happy to shoot one with a gun. You don't want to come home empty-handed, but you prefer to kill one with a bow. And he actually said, he's like, 90% of the time that person ends up killing it with a gun. He's like, I think you'd be better off if you're okay with it at the end. You should just be okay with the beginning and just kind of enjoy the hunt a little bit more, versus you kind of have to take away that indecision of which weapon do I pack today. And I think it's good advice, because it's I said both trips I've gone on, I ended up, when you have that rifle like on your pack, or your buddy's carrying it, and you see that moose or caribou standing out there at 200 yards, it's and not a very viable option to kill with a bow right then and there. It's pretty tempting just to grab that gun. So but along those lines, it's like, I think in my 2 trips up there, it's, you just kind of, you're at the mercy of so much stuff that's out of your control. Like I said, we're so spoiled down here of, I can go hunt when I want, how I want, as long as I want, as short as I want. And weather, I mean, we don't get bad weather down here. Sure, snowstorms come in and stuff like that. But in general, Idaho in September and October, it's pretty stinking nice. Every time I've been to Alaska, you'll get like 48 hours of pounding rain, 40-mile-an-hour winds, stuff that's like, truly you have no option but to sit in the tent and just weather it out and wait for it to pass. And it's totally possible on a 5-day caribou hunt that you can miss out on 2 to 3 days of hunting. I'd say it's guaranteed you're going to miss out on at least 1 day of hunting.
Really?
So definitely factor that into your plans. I think on our trip up there, I think we got stuck in Kotzebue for about 36 hours from when we were supposed to get out. Finally get out in the field, and then we had 24 hours of pretty nice weather. Weren't seeing a lot of caribou, and then we had 30-ish hours of just literally 40-mile-an-hour winds. I remember, I didn't have one of those. We had a gun, and I was messaging on an inReach a buddy of mine, back here in Idaho, like, hey, like at 100 yards, how much wind drift you got to hold for in a 40-mile-an-hour wind? It was like something stupid, like 58 inches or something like that. Like It was literally like, even if one walked by us, like you wouldn't have been able to shoot. And so, you just stuck there. You just got to wait. And, there's just, but that's the allure of it all, right? Is that wildness, and something is out of your control. And you're better off to have that mindset going into it, know that it's going to happen. And frankly, you're just really lucky if it doesn't happen, and take advantage of that.
My luck, it would be like all 7 days or all 14 days fog.
Yeah. Funny as you were saying that, I had a buddy who basically, I did the same thing you're doing to me. He went on the hunt probably 3 or 4 years prior, and I sat down with him over beers one night and chatted. And his hunt, I think he was in his tent for 5 out of the 6 or 7 days.
Seriously?
Yeah. Same Brooks Range hunt. I don't know exactly where, but just had some absolutely nasty weather and just couldn't leave camp. So
that's interesting.
But that's, you got to be planned and prepared for that. Have a tent that's going to hold up to that kind of stuff. Have clothing that's going to keep you warm. I think once the rain stopped on us. The wind kept going for a while, and we didn't have a temperature gauge out there with us, but it was probably like 25, 30 degrees, and then that 30, 40 mile an hour wind, that wind chill was cold. I literally had every single piece of clothing we had on, from base layers to mid layers to puffy jackets, and then rain jackets on top of that, just to keep that wind from biting into you.
That's crazy. Well, let's get into how'd you guys get ready? Because I have one guy he asked a question, and he's like, how did you guys prepare for the backcountry and getting into shape and doing that on a budget? He wants to know basically how you're getting into shape and preparing without spending a ton of money. So I'm guessing he's not wanting to go to the gym and spend money going to the gym or spend a bunch of money on gear getting ready for the hunt.
Oh, okay. Man, just get out and hike. You got a backpack. I mean, I don't own a gym membership. I just freaking, I'm fortunate to live kind of in the foothills around Boise, Idaho, and I just go hike 5 days a week, throw a pack on, and I don't think there's anything better that you can do other than just, do the activity you're setting out to do. So if you're going to go on a hunt, go freaking hike before it. Doing a bunch of squats in the gym is going to help, but not as much as just hiking. So.
Well, what about the Exo Death Hike? Is that something that you and your buddies do, or is that something that other guys can get on too?
It's still a private kind of invite only. If someone wants to do it, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. And every year we have 5 or 10 guys that I've maybe only met once, or never even met at all, that end up, we kind of converse and they end up showing up. So, but it's just due to the complexities and the logistics of that type of events. It's not something I can just throw a sign up out there and let anyone and everyone come. So,
well, it's aptly named from what I hear. I mean, I hear it is a death hike. I mean, it is like, holy crap.
Yeah, selfishly I do it just because it's something. I used to mountain bike race for quite a few years, and that's something that January, February, March, April, kind of kept you on your toes and made you stay in shape. And I haven't done that, but I've been doing the death hike, and it's something it's always in July, so I better be training in March, April, May, June, getting ready for it. So I think putting something on your calendar a couple months in advance that you're committed to, you're forcing yourself to do, it's so easy and natural for all of us to procrastinate things. And if you kind of have a goal in mind a few months in advance, it's going to get it going for you.
For sure. Well, and when you guys were hunting Alaska, did you find that, you had to be in super physical condition, or were you guys?
Yeah, when I heard the question at first, I was like, it was actually a really easy hunt. We did have to walk. I think on our moose hunts, it's terrible from me being like ADD and wanting to get out and explore and hike. But your best chance was just sit in camp all day, every day. Walk 100 yards away, a call, and go back and sit in your camp chair, and you could freaking sit there and drink a beer. And especially with a rifle, one would just walk by you eventually. How those bulls, they could hear you and not come check you out for 24 hours or
really
long distance away. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So with the caribou hunt, I think it would depend on where your camp was. We were essentially on the north end of this big flat valley that was about 3 to 5 miles across, depending on, just in that area. And all the caribou in the main kind of river corridor was right in the middle. We had to walk 2.5 miles every morning to get to where all the caribou migrated through for the most part. But at the same time, there's ones that would literally come through camp. I ended up shooting mine probably not 700-800 yards from camp on the last day. So yeah, I think it's definitely not a physically demanding hunt, at least where I was at. You do have the tundra marshy crap to walk on, which is pretty terrible. It's kind of like it's you hit solid ground, and I don't care if I had to climb 4,000 feet. I'd probably rather do that because it's just frustrating. You just move so slow. But as far as kicking your butt, it's really not that bad. It's pretty much flat. I'm sure there are some caribou hunts where it's hilly country and worse. Just the specific one we went on was pretty easy.
I've heard other guys talk about that. I had a guy that he retired since, but he went to Alaska for caribou, and they ended up hiking and hiking, and they said like, dude, it was like the marshy bogs were like unfrozen or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and so it just everything like you'd step on solid ground, and then you'd look at what looked like it was solid, then you go knee deep. And
Yeah. Yeah.
he's like, dude, it sucked. They ended up shooting 2 caribou right out of the tent, just kind of like your guys' experience. They woke up one day, there's 2 nice caribou standing there.
Bam, bam. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's how it happens a lot for guys. I think to just be patient and, it's a migration hunt, right? So they should be coming your way. There's no need to go chasing them. And really, that's one thing we learned on the hunt. Or you learn, I think any experienced hunter, even not experienced hunters, are going to figure out pretty quick. Like if you're not with a bow, especially if you're not in front of them where they're going to cross, you're not killing them. There's no like, oh, there's a caribou a mile away and he's walking away from me, I'm gonna loop around and catch up to him. No, like they're as good as gone. I was describing it to a buddy a couple months ago because he's doing a caribou hunt at the same time, and he's a big salmon fisherman. And I was like, pretend your boat is anchored and the salmon swam upstream. It's gone, right? Like there's no, like you can't go get that fish. It's gone past you and they're gone, and you're just waiting for the next one to come upstream. So
that makes sense. Well, I kind of want to get into the gear aspect of it, and you're such a good guy to talk to because you run or own the Exo mountain gear packs, and you've also got your hands in a few other things, and you're a really knowledgeable guy when it comes to gear. And I just want to ask you, are you entrepreneurial by trade, or is that just how'd you get into doing all this stuff? I mean, I know that's completely off topic, but this is something I've been wanting to ask you for years.
Yeah. I think I have a mind. I can see things that need to be fixed. I can easily, I'm not like the most creative person in the world to imagine things out of thin air, but I can look at a backpack and go, holy cow, that could be fixed, that could be changed, bam, 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 and all of a sudden it's like you could fix a lot of problems. I see that stuff really easily in my mind. And in all things in life, I'm very analytical of my gear and always thinking about how I can improve it, or stuff around the house, or a freaking lawnmower. I'm like, I buy one and I'm like, if I owned a lawnmower company, I'd do this, this, and this, just random stuff like that. And so that's kind of just my natural mindset. And then I, frankly, was kind of forced into it just from the 07, 08 recession that hit. I had a family construction company and we're doing quite well. And then the economy just took a tank, and, within a few years, basically that went away, and it was like, holy crap. I basically quit. I had like 1 year of college left, and I stopped going to school to work for the family company full time. So I didn't have my degree, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? I go back to school, or I could just go to work. And my mindset was just, well, I'm just going to go to work and start making money. So at the time I was really kind of geeking out and getting into bows. I was like building custom bows, taking limbs from one company and matching them up with cams from another company, and just kind of tinkering, engineering, with bows. And I was like, well, I'm just going to start an archery shop. And I started an archery shop in my garage, which evolved into the SNS Archery website that we run now. It's been 11 years ago now. Which is crazy. It's gone by pretty fast. But so the actual starting the business side of it was forced. It was just flat out like, okay, I got a house payment to make. How am I going to do this? And I felt that I could easily just create my own company versus go and work for somebody else. And also at the time, nobody was hiring, right? The economy was not very good. So
yeah, I graduated high school in 08, and getting a job was, holy crap, it was that hard finding a job, and went out and fought fire. That was a bad year, 08, 09.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know that's out in left field here. But so I wanted to ask you that for years. Like, dude, how because those aren't the only companies you've been involved in or started.
Yeah, there's been quite a handful at this point.
Yeah. Well, that's another podcast. But let's get into. So you said you were wearing a bunch of stuff. It's still trying to cut down on the wind, and from a guy who wants to go there and be as comfortable as I can be, what kind of gear and stuff would you suggest? What would you leave behind that you find guys or you guys using that you didn't need?
Yeah, for sure. There's two options generally with these drop camp hunts. Is one, they can kind of do like a fully outfitted deal where they're going to provide you a stove, a tent, a cot, a chair, utensils, your food, stuff like that. And then some companies will do it kind of a la carte where you could just rent a chair and a cot from them. And then like the one we did, they're kind of all or nothing, like bring your own gear or we supply all the gear, at least from like the camping, eating perspective, right? Not obviously not your hunting equipment or your clothes, but we elected, you're going to get, say marginal gear at best. It's going to be probably like a kind of a generic Cabela's tent and things like that. And the first trip, I don't like anything like that, especially on a big hunt like this. It's kind of out of my control, right? I'll control as much as I can because, if I know I can bring a really good quality tent up there that's going to hold up and keep me comfortable, I'd rather do that than be at the mercy of what they provide. So,
right.
Some people, it's like, oh, that's a no-brainer. I don't have to buy the stuff. Like if you don't already own half the stuff, that might not make a lot of sense. But so really, you're going to be limited by two things. One, your drop camp service, the pilot, they're going to give you a weight per person. Could be 50 pounds, could be 75 pounds. I think we were 50 pounds, not including your food and weapon, if I remember right. So it's just kind of 50 pounds of clothing, optics, your stove, your tent, all that stuff. So we we're obviously backpackers, that's kind of what we do. That's what our gear is based around. And so we just kind of went with a really lightweight setup up there. We had I think we had a Go Light teepee. It's a teepee that Lenny, he's a co-owner of Exo with me. He's had for years, and it's a pretty roomy one. Two guys, it does really well in the wind. They don't make them anymore. They went out of business, but just a good teepee. And then had the bug netting. You don't know. I think the later in September you get, pretty much bugs are going to be gone. But if you go late August, early September, there's a chance. So we've been fortunate both trips that bugs haven't been an issue at all. But we've had a full bug internet. The one thing that I would highly, highly recommend is a cot. We bought some on Amazon for really cheap. They weigh like 2.5 pounds. I think it's just like some Chinese knockoff, but knew they were like $70, but you knew like, I'm going to use this thing, once a year maybe. So I didn't want to go spend a lot of money on a super nice one. The reason I recommend a cot, because I never ever would imagine using one here in Idaho, is you're usually going to be like on a gravel there. On the moose hunt, we were on that tundra-y crap, and it's just like it's not level anywhere. I mean, there is no such thing as level ground or hard ground. Like I remember when we pulled the cot up, it was just like one part sunk down 4 inches, the other part sunk down 2 inches. I mean, it was all over the map. And then on our caribou hunt, we were on just a super rocky runway landing strip that they made, and I think you could sit down and spend an hour and pick out all the rocks and make it as flat as possible. But the cot just kind of gives you that, throw it down and you're good to go. And it's super, it's like 4 inches off the ground, super lightweight, small, compact thing. Definitely worth it. Still brought a sleeping pad on top of that, because you're that cot's not going to give you any insulation, and if it gets cold, you're going to want some insulation below you. So, outside of that, like we just had a couple heavy-duty dry bags that we threw all the gear in, like a food bag and the clothing bag. And I'm sure, definitely going to need some type of hip waiter. We use these ones called Neos River Trekkers. They're kind of heavy duty. They were great for our moose hunt because you wore them literally like the second you got out of the tent until you got back in the tent. It was just, you're just in water. It's kind of like duck hunting. On the caribou hunt, you just had to put them on to cross streams. And we had two different streams. One was big stream. One was a small river that we had to cross to get to where the caribou were, and we had to do that every day. And so you're going to want something to get across those. I know there's some, you would really, we're having a really good communication going with your pilot service. Just asking them those questions, like what can I expect? They've got, they know where they're at, where they're taking you in general. They know, they should be able to give you good advice there. That's like our first moose hunt. Like we talked about, no one ever even mentioned from the guide service to bring waders. It's like, some newbie could have shown up without any waders, and like they never asked us when we got on the plane to go out in the field, do you have waders? It was just like it was crazy. And if without them, you would have not been able to hunt. You would have been able to leave your tent. So, anyways, find a good guide service. Ask lots of questions. You're gonna get I would ask all those questions before you ever book. You know what I mean? Like. You're going to find out pretty quickly if they're responsive and helpful and give you good advice versus, if they're not getting back to you or taking 3 to 4 days and then they give you a short, quick answer, maybe I would look somewhere else. So
interesting.
But yeah, there's like another called Wiggies. They're like ultralight hip waders, like super light material. I think they're only good for crossing a quick, short stream, and then I think they kind of break apart pretty fast, but they're a little bit cheaper and probably get the job done for a short caribou hunt. So,
yeah, I was thinking waders. I'm like, man, just hearing you talk about, the bogs or the marshy kind of areas, it's like, man, it'd just be nice to have like hip waders or even chest waders if you had to cross something. That would just suck if you didn't have them.
Yeah, and that's where you're just going to have to add. Like I think it could be so conditional on where you're dropped off, like what would be ideal for that. So our Neos ones were pretty overkill for our hunt, because they're light, but they still weigh a couple pounds, and you got to strap them to the outside of your pack and pack them all around all day for, you're hunting for 16 hours because it's light forever, and you're packing them around all day just to cross, 2 small rivers. You wear them for 5 minutes. So, but yeah, like I know on our moose hunt, we were talking to one of the guides in the hangar, and he's like, I can't believe you guys are out there with just hip waders. Like, you need full on chest waders. And I'm like, yeah, we found that out. I had water go over the top of our waders like once a day, because same story as your buddy. You'd be in like shin deep stuff, and then the next step would go over the top of your hip waders. So
yeah.
But yeah, just really communicate with the guide service, and I'd listen to as many podcasts like this where people are doing kind of question and answer, build up a long list of questions, and probably wouldn't bombard the guide service with 50 questions at once. Maybe start like with 5 and kind of just work away, because if they get too long of an email, they it's going to be tough for them to answer, especially if you haven't booked the flight already or booked the hunt already. But.
Well, it seems like some guys, like especially from the stuff that I've looked at, they give you an equipment list, or the ones that and just when we went on our trip, it was like, okay, here's what you need, here's what you don't need, and it's like, man, what you don't need is actually quite surprising, and some of the things that you would need, like some like waders, to me that just seems kind of like common sense, but for somebody that may not expect that, like you said, that you'd be really screwed being out there. You paid $5,000 to sit in a tent.
A good guide service, like I said, the one we were using for the last hunt and this hunt, I mean, they're vested in you being successful, having a good hunt, enjoying yourselves, and whether you come back or not, or they at least want you telling your buddies about it. So a good guide service should care about that. They should help you. They should line you out, give you good advice. So yeah, I would, like I said, hit them up and, hey, what's your recommended gear list, and ask questions, and that should really help narrow it down for you. There's, the place we use, they gave a gear list, and there's still like, I guess a lot of stuff. It's pretty generic, basic one, there's a lot of stuff I'd probably packed that they didn't mention that I would know that I want for my own hunting purposes or glassing purposes or something like that. And then there's some stuff on there absolutely you're like, oh wow, I didn't really think about that. So yeah, I think I wouldn't have their gear list be the end all be all, but a really good jumping off point for you.
Are you guys using the same guide as you did last time? Did you have a good enough experience?
Yeah. That fabulous experience, and definitely using them to go back.
Perfect. Are you, is that a secret, or is that going to be public knowledge?
No, yeah, it's, so we booked the hunt through, Outdoors International, Russ Meyer, and then it's kind of his contact is the guide service. So if you want to check into that, I'd reach out to Russ. I think it's just Russ at outdoorsinternational.com. And he'll line you out.
Perfect.
Yeah, he's a great resource for all that stuff. So,
that's something I've thought about going, is like a hunting broker.
Yeah.
And
Russ doesn't cost you any extra money. Essentially, he works with the guide, the outfitters, and basically gets the hunt at a discounted rate, and then sells it to you at what they would normally charge. But you just you get a lean on Russ for his experience. He's done the hunt before. He can be someone who helps you with the questions. So definitely, I would research into it and reach out to him, and he can definitely help you.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I'd want to hunt, like you having a good experience. That automatically makes me want to go hunting with somebody that I know who's had a good experience, got into animals. I mean, then booking with somebody random, even if they do. I mean, the word of mouth there, it's really. I mean, like Africa, Americans are some of their best clients over there, because they tell all their friends, and then their friends come over, and it's just, they want you to have such a good time. So. I mean, just that Russ guy, definitely. I'll put his link in the description box below for the guys that are listening to this. But that, to me, that's a really good tip: is get a hold of that guy. He'll know exactly who to go to.
Yep. I think you can hit him up for time of year, weapon, budget, and then they kind of steer you in the right direction. That's a good fit for you.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the pack that you're using, because I have a 5500, and my reasoning for the 5500 is like, well, I can fit more shit in the 5500 than I can anything else.
Yeah.
What pack did you use, and what pack would you suggest for heading over there?
I mean, really, you could get away. It's not a backpack hunt. We get this question a lot. It's like, hey, I'm doing a 10-day moose hunt in Alaska. I need I need a big bag. And like, well, I don't think I try to tell them, like, I don't think you quite understand is why you're out there for 10 days. You're not backpacking for 10 days, and you're going to have, like I said, I've got these dry bags from a steelhead float that I do every year, just big burly river bags. And we use those, and they worked great. So threw all our gear in there, checked those on the airplane. They worked great. The pilot service is going to prefer that you have soft luggage so they can jam them into different compartments on the plane, versus like the first time we went, we had these hard plastic totes. And those are just harder to fit in certain places, so
makes sense.
So the dry bags work great. And then, I could have been doing all my hunting out of a 2000. So
really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, I kind of had some all my insulation layers, if it got warm, they were in the pack, so it takes up some space. But you're at that point, you're just day hunting. You're just a couple miles from camp, and you walk back. Or I think most realistically, like on your caribou hunt, you're probably never more than 1.5 miles, 2 miles from your camp. So while that may take a little while to walk back because of that frozen tundra crap, it's not like it's not going to take forever, and you're not super, super far away. So
what kind of clothing and stuff were you guys going with for that kind of hunt?
I think just a mix and match of a bunch of stuff that worked well. I know I have some just merino wool long johns. I brought some like wader, like they're like long johns for going inside of waders, a little bit thicker, sort of like for like late season fishing. I brought some of those just because they were kind of warm and fairly lightweight, and I thought I could layer up. I would definitely just have have your layering strategy going on, like super light. I had basically lightweight merino long johns. I had those the fishing wader ones, which were like half long john, half sweatpants. And then I have like the Prana Stretch Zion is my favorite hunting pant ever. I think I had a couple pairs of those, and then I had some rain pants on top of that. Don't think if you have access or want to buy some puffy pants, I don't think those would be a bad choice. Something to give you some good insulation, because it can get just freaking cold. I mean, I know during after it rained, like I actually I have a light and equipment quilt I use instead of a sleeping bag, and I packed that thing around because when we got to a glassing point, I busted it out and kind of crawled inside of that just to keep warm. That wind was just cutting through you, and so anything that's lightweight insulation layers would be a great idea. And then I just had some First Light. I think it was I don't know if they make them still or not, but they're Boundary Storm Tight rain pants. And then pretty much similar setup for up top. I had like a couple merino wool, mainly First Light stuff as base layers. Had one of their Uncompahgre puffy jacket. I have like a super light Arc'teryx puffy sweater that I've used for quite a few years when I want like really lightweight down insulation. So I had that, and then another rain jacket on top of that. So like I said, when it was cold, I was wearing everything I brought.
For sure.
Yeah, and I would definitely have extra dry clothes at camp, and don't ever leave camp with stuff like just like, say you had your extra clothes and you just threw them inside your tent. I would like throw them inside of a dry bag and then throw them inside of the tent. I think like wind could pick up, grizzly bear could come in. There's just so many different scenarios, and you gotta be a little bit more thoughtful as you're doing things of like what could happen. And you're gone at camp all day long, and your tent blows over, and then it starts raining. Everything could be soaking wet. So definitely kind of realize that there's a really good chance it could get bad, and then somebody might not be able to get to you for 2 days or 3 days if it's bad weather. So just pay attention to that stuff.
That's a good point. I asked because of the rain gear aspect. I was my wife got me the Storm Seek jacket by First Light, and I was salmon fishing up Tillamook, North Oregon coast, and we were just getting crapped on all day. We got one nice fish, but we were just getting dumped on all day, and then it just got to the point where we're all like shivering to the bone. I'm like, dude, let's just call it.
Yeah.
And I take off my rain jacket, and pretty much the zipper wasn't waterproof, like wasn't even close to being waterproof, and I don't know, I just wasn't really happy with it. And so I think I'm kind of looking for a new rain jacket.
I have a Seek jacket. I've always really, really liked that thing. I don't know if you have a faulty zipper or if I've never noticed that the zipper leaked. But
yeah, I mean, we were sitting in the rain for like 4 hours, just sitting in the rain. And I'm like, well, I'm going to find out if my shit's good. And then if I was going to wear that again, I'd probably duct tape any zipper anywhere.
Yeah, I would honestly, I would reach out to First Light and see what they say about that. That's I've been in I just did a steelhead float trip in November, and I had my Seek with me, and it rained for pretty much 2 days straight, and we're fishing. We fish no matter what the weather is, and so it got freaking pounded on, and I don't remember it leaking on me at all.
That's crazy. I seem to always buy this stuff. I joke around. I bought the stuff that was made at like 4:55 p.m. Friday.
Oh. Yeah, you want to go to the doctor first thing in the morning, not at the end of the day.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, you touched on another area that I know I'd be like a big wuss in, and that's grizzly bears. Did you guys have any troubles with grizzly bears? Because I know I probably couldn't even fall asleep for like. I don't know. I don't mess with grizzly bears. I have no experience with them, and maybe they're not as big of a problem as I think they are. But what was your guys' experience with grizzly bears? Did you guys have any?
Honestly, exact same as you. The first moose hunt, it was like, oh, we're gonna run into grizzlies, and they're like, well, maybe they're not around. It could happen, and then like I think if you were, in the foothills away from where we were moose hunting, it's a possibility. But we joked, like, once we got done that there wasn't any grizzly bears in there unless they figured out how to grow gills and swim all the time. But on the caribou hunt, absolutely. I think we saw 5 or 6 of them during the hunt. Most of them were off in the distance. We did have one the night, or the very last day, basically right above camp, probably 500 yards away. It was actually pretty fun to watch. I think it was Big Sal, and she was up there like eating berries and like literally like laying on her back and scratching her back on rocks. And it was pretty we sat up there for like a last 2 hours of light, and we literally went to bed with a grizzly bear 500-600 yards away on the hillside. And I think Lenny was more nervous than I was. In hindsight, he was probably too nervous, and I probably wasn't nervous enough. Like, because it's a real probability that you'll definitely have to listen to the podcast with Billy Bowles once we release it, because he talked specifically about this and gave some really, really great tips. He's had a lot of experiences with them, and great tips on what to do and not to do. Because in general, like our guy, the pilot that dropped us off told us to, put the meat, like in my mind, I'd want to put the meat as far away from camp as possible, right? But you talk to Billy, and he's like, well, yeah, if you put it too far away from camp, they're just going to steal it. Your meat's gone. You might as well just not have killed the caribou. And then said our guy told us to put it like 100 yards away from camp. And I was like, really? That's it? Like, it needs to be further away from that. And talking with Billy, he's actually got to the point where he puts the meat like right next to his tent. And it sounds crazy, but if they're bears that are trained to hear gunshots, to go get meat, the closer it is your tent, if they're coming into your camp, they're going to get that meat. They're probably not going to try to kill you, right? There's just meat there already for them. But there's a much less chance that they're going to have the balls to come right next to your tent and take that. So it was pretty interesting. Like I was, as he was saying it, I was like, holy cow, man, I don't know. I still don't know if I'm comfortable with that, but he had some good insights. So, but yeah, we went to bed that night, and you were, butt was puckered, and I think we ended up, taking a couple Tylenol PMs so you actually do fall asleep at some point, and just hope you're not awoke by a bear scratching on the outside. So
I know. I'd be like afraid to cook anything that smelled good.
Right. We talked to, we obviously asked a lot of these questions going into it, and talked to the guide service that we used, and they basically said they've been doing it for 20 years, 25 years. They've had a dozen incidences where bears have got into camp, tore up tents, tore up sleeping bags, but they almost, like, in general, they said it's because someone was, like, the hunters were being stupid. Like, one specific instance was they killed a caribou. The guy had bloody pants. He left him in the tent, and they went out and hunted all day. They came back, and a grizzly bear tore up the camp, right? Another one, they had, they'd been cooking a bunch of food inside the tent. And so she was just like, use common sense, be smart, and you'll be fine, but there's still, like, for what I liked about up there was it was open tundra. The only time that you were ever going to get surprised by a grizzly bear would have been during the river crossings. Like, each side of the river had 20, 30 yards of brush. And so I was definitely like, I think I had my pistol in my hand, as we were going through that brushy stuff. Just, be ready and be alert for sure. And then the rest of it was, like I said, it was so open that it was kind of a non-issue for us when we were actually hunting. I mean, I think that you could have gone over a little knoll and had one, 50 yards below you that you didn't see until you crested over that. And I suppose that could be an issue, but and then from there, what you do, that, man, it sounds like that's up in the air, whether it's pistol, bear spray. We did a podcast where these guys out of Montana are swear by like a marine flare, that's the best, because the bear spray is fantastic when the wind's at your back, but if it's in your face or blowing hard left and right, you're SOL. Pistol works good if you can shoot, and you I think they did the math on, like, if the bear's at 50 yards and decides to charge, it's like 1 point something seconds that they're going to be on top of you. So the odds that you're actually going to get the pistol out and get a shot or two off in an accurate shot, those are pretty stinking low. So yeah, it's, that's a crapshoot.
I think I listened to that same episode, and they said like a 10 millimeter was like the best one.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that being pretty surprising as well. But the guy said they did a bunch of ballistics tests shooting through heavy stuff, and that essentially the speed and diameter of the slightly smaller bullet has a better chance of penetrating through the skull and getting in there versus a bigger, heavier, slower bullet might just get stuck. Which, I think you could kind of see how that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Well, I know we're getting close to an hour here, Steve. So is there anything that you want to leave the audience with, or any closing thoughts on hunting Alaska caribou or beginner's guide?
I think my advice to everybody in any aspect of life is just do it. Everyone's scared. Everyone's nervous. Get off the couch and do it. Stop making excuses. Stop saying next year. I said whether that's getting into shape, starting your own company, or going on an Alaska hunt. So you're never going to learn until you do it, and just go. Figure it out as you go. You might make a bunch of mistakes, but freaking who cares? Live and learn, have fun, and move on to the next adventure.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. I know there's got to be a second one here, because one of the niches for our this podcast is kind of talking about helping people grow their platforms and stuff like that. And you've had a lot of success with a lot of different aspects of the hunting industry, and I think you'd be an awesome guy to pick the brain on that. So we might have to schedule another episode sometime if you're willing to come back onto the show. Yeah,
absolutely, man. Just reach out, and happy to do a second one with you.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I'll let you get going. I'll definitely put do you want to give them some links and stuff, or they can get a hold of you and your podcast and stuff?
Sure. Yeah. So the EXO Mountain Gear, EXO Mountain Gear is the company, just exomountaingear.com. On Instagram, we call ourselves @Hunt Backcountry. And then our podcast is the Hunt Backcountry podcast. And it's pretty much on all the normal podcast platforms, Stitcher and iTunes and whatnot. So, and if anyone ever wants to reach out to me personally, it's just steve@exomountaingear.com. And always happy to help, answer questions, help fellow hunter out.
Awesome, man. Well, are you going back to Hoodoo this year?
I think so. I got baby boy coming May 6th. So
I didn't know that.
Hoodoo is like May 29th. So it'll be need a baby to come on time, mama to be happy, and I got my daughter's 2 now, so I was like, I could probably load her up and have her follow me around as well. So I'm trying to plot my way to get there, but there's a chance I'm not. So
awesome. Well, I plan on having a booth there again. So if you end up having a booth, we'll have to get together there and hang out or something.
Absolutely, man.
All right. See you, Steve.
Yeah. Have a good one.
See ya. All right. Holy shiitake mushrooms. This is, I don't even know what episode this is. We're approaching 40 really freaking fast, and I am excited. I am pumped up. I am motivated as hell. You guys are just lighting me up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, on Podbean itself, at Patreon. We got some momentum going, guys. We got some big podcasts coming. Not that, I hate saying that now, honestly, because I sound like a salesman. Every episode should be big. Every episode should be on point, pun intended. Every episode should be as beneficial to the freaking subscribers as possible. So when I say big episodes, it's guys that are larger than in the industry than what I've had on. Doesn't mean that what they have is any more important than the small guys, but I kind of get excited that now we're attracting some of the bigger names on here. I'm not gonna lie, but totally excited for where the podcast is going. I'm getting a lot of guys asking me if I'm going to these shows, and hindsight, maybe next year I will. SHOT Show, ATA, some shit over in Pennsylvania that I've never even heard of. That's across the United States for you guys. So you guys got to give me a little bit more time to build and grow and fund that. But maybe next year we'll start hitting some of these shows. For guys that are wondering, I am going to be hitting Hoodoo up this year. We are going to have a booth. I want to do something badass like a long range competition. I want to be shooting right there with everybody, and could not be more excited to see where this thing goes. So give me your guys' feedback. If you're even listening to the outro here, I've got some areas that we haven't covered yet. I'm an archery guy. Everybody knows that I'm archery, but I've said it a few times on here as well. I'm long range. I love shooting long range. I don't do it near as much as I used to. I want to, but if you're going to be great at something, you got to stay in your lane. But at the same time, it is on my heart. I am enthusiastic about it. In long range hunting and just shooting shit at like 1,000 yards and hear it going whang. It's so freaking rewarding. It's like hearing an arrow hit at 150 yards. It's just it's right there. It's right there. And I know a lot of you guys that shoot archery also shoot rifles and guns and stuff. So if you're down for that, let me know. I can just make it a Patreon thing. I can just make it a YouTube thing, or I can make it all platforms and just blitz that bitch. So let me know. I'm totally down to do it, and just fired up for where this thing's going. I've been rambling for 2 minutes and 50 seconds, so I'm going to get off here. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one, guys. Bye.